Fighting games received a massive surge of popularity in the 1990s, with the 90s being the arcade golden age where all the kids and teenagers were begging their parents for extra quarters to play their favorite fighting games on arcade cabinets. Then of course you have your esports and streaming era, where tournaments that were previously held at some small hotel ballrooms and local arcades were now this big esports spectacle that could be streamed globally. Fast forward till now, then you have your modern age of fighting games, where things like rollback netcode were introduced as an industry standard for the genre. All of this is to say that since the 90s, fighting games have cemented themselves as a staple in video games in general. You would be hard-pressed to go out and ask the most casual gamer of all time to name you a fighting game, and they couldn't, even if they've never played a fighting game before in their life. But even though fighting games are a staple, they have still to this day remained pretty niche. Now you might be asking yourself, that doesn't make sense. How can something be niche but can also be a staple as well? It goes back to what I said earlier about ask the casual gamer. I'm talking about the casual gamer that plays 2K, Call of Duty, sports games, race games, all those games that come out like once a year. They know the iconic Scorpion Get Over Here. They know the Hadouken from Street Fighter, and a lot of things that contribute to that are popular rap songs. A lot of popular rap songs contribute to that by just giving you lingo and references from fighting games in their songs.
Dread-headed killer like Cyrat, bout a gun to a fist fight like Jack.
Sharper than the blade, like sticky fingers assign ya. Mortal Kombat, street fighting like E Honda.
But one of the reasons why fighting games remain niche is because, sure, people know about them, but fighting games have a very tight-knit community of people who are hardcore about it and play them on a daily basis. In comparison with other genres like shooters, action-adventure games, MMOs, and hero shooters, fighting games are on the lower end of the totem pole when it comes to concurrent players, and generally so worse than the other genres of games that I just listed. And one of the reasons why a lot of casual players gives for this is because they think that fighting games are pretty boring. They don't really have any replayability and they get pretty stale. Which at the end of the day, I'm not gonna knock your opinion for that. If you think something is stale and you don't like it, then that's just what it is. You're not gonna like it. Fighting games can get stale and a little bit repetitive at times. But also, for those of you who are the ones who play every Call of Duty that comes out, every 2K, every sports game, and you act like it's the best thing since sliced bread, I'm gonna take what you say with a grain of salt. But that is the argument that I normally hear from a casual gamer. But another reason why people say fighting games are niche, and this comes from the hardcore fans of the genre, is that fighting games have such a steep learning curve that newcomers coming in, casuals coming into the franchise, it's just too hard for them to learn. And goddamn, when I hear them say that and I watch some casuals try to play a fighting game, of course you would think the way that you think. Because I get a little confused, because when I see people play Call of Duty and they're YYing, slide canceling everywhere, 360 no scope, all of that shit, and then I see you struggle with a simple 3 to 5 hit combo, I'm thinking to myself, something is just not adding up here at all. I was on a Reddit thread where they were talking about a person having a 2% win rate in Tekken 8. A guy responded with that he sucks and he played 15 matches and couldn't get his opponent lower than 90% of their health. That sounds absolutely outrageous to me. You couldn't grab him once. You couldn't do it. You literally could have just smashed your face against a controller and you could have gotten him lower than 90% of it. Like you had to. That's not even that. I'm not even asking you to do 50. I'm not even asking you to do 50% damage. You can't even get him to 90. That's one grab. But with me saying all this, I have to admit that I'm coming from a place of ignorance slightly. I was basically born into the FGC. One of the first video games that I ever played was Mortal Kombat Trilogy on the Nintendo 64 when I was like 3, 4, or 5 years old. And ever since then, I've loved fighting games, and my love for fighting games has done nothing but grow as I've gotten older. And I'm not saying that I never struggled with learning a fighting game, but when I went from Mortal Kombat to Street Fighter to Tekken, to Killer Instinct, to Soul Calibur, Marvel vs. Capcom, there was a little bit of a learning curve, but I picked it up rather quickly. You didn't hand me the controller and I looked like I was a baby deer trying to walk for the first time. So to the people that haven't played fighting games before, but like I said, they're doing the YYing, 360 no scope, all of the slide canceling, everything, and I see you play fighting games and it looks like not even none of your mechanics have transferred over from this game. I start to think to myself, Are fighting games really hard, or are people just really that bad? And this is not even me trying to come off as an elitist. I'm definitely not the best. I would say that I'm very comfortably above average, but you're not going to see me play Tekken and get perfect electrics. You're not going to see me blue spark every move that I do, every frame perfect move. You're not going to see me do that. I'm just not one of those guys. But when a person who knows what they're really doing, when you get one of them, when you get one of them damn demons that get on these fighting games and utterly destroy a casual player, that can destroy any confidence that they ever had or any will that they ever had to play a fighting game again, and they will never touch that fucking game again. But then I start to think to myself, maybe it's not always a skill issue. Maybe sometimes it's an acceptance thing. In MMOs, team games, hero shooters, and games like that, you have someone to possibly put the blame on. You can put your shortcomings off on your teammates. You can blame your partner. They can carry some of the blame. But in fighting games, there's none of that. If you lose, it's on you, nobody else. It's a one-on-one situation because you made the wrong moves, you paid for it. There is no teammate to blame, there is no trash healer, no trash DPS, just you versus your opponent and the decisions you make. If you keep jumping and they anti-air you every time, that's on you. If you mash on wake up and you get punished, that's on you. If you don't know the matchup, if you get countered, if you get blocked, anything, there's nobody to blame but yourself. But me, myself, someone who gets in the lab and trains with these characters, you can definitely tell when you're going against somebody who knows what they're doing, and then when you're going against somebody who has absolutely no clue in the fucking world what they're doing. They genuinely look like that they're taking the controller and just smashing it against their face and just hoping and just hope something happens. But what will most people always tell you? The old age thing. Practice makes perfect. Get in the practice arena, get in the lab, practice these moves, get your blue sparks, get your timing right, learn some frame data, and you'll be fine. But here's the kicker. Most casuals do not want to pay $50 to $70 to get on the game and sit down and learn. No father of three wants to come home from his 9 to 5 and sit down to learn frame data, learn combos, and practice them for sometimes for an hour or more. Because for me and a lot of other people in the FGC, sometimes we log on and we don't actually even play in the match. Sometimes we are just in the practice arena and we don't even play against an actual person. We're just practicing moves for sometimes 2 hours, 3 hours, maybe at a time. To a casual, that's like clocking out of a 9 to 5 and then going into a part-time job for like 2 to 3 hours. No casual wants to do that. But even if you just take half that time and just dedicate it to nailing down some combos, I promise you, everything will just become easier after that. Once you get your first combo down, the level of satisfaction that you'll get from finally getting that combo after you've been trying to get it will make you want to move on to the next one, then to the next one, then to the next one. You'll get all these combos down to the point where just eventually you just start freestyling combos and then everything starts to come naturally. And then once you got the combos part down, you've already learned the basics, then you start working on the punishing, and then you start learning frame data. Like I said, it all comes naturally. And one other thing that I think that really causes the disconnect between these fighters and their skill gap and everything like that, slow down. You get overwhelmed and you make fighters way harder than they need to be. You'll do a move in a fighter like Mortal Kombat, which a fighter who has relatively easy inputs, let's say it's just a simple down back one. You'll do that move, you'll practice it, and you will get it right, but then you'll move to a fighter like Tekken. You'll try to do an electric, and then you'll see that damn star. That star will have so many people looking down at their controller like a deer in the headlights. They'll start looking for an actual star button on their controller, and then you'll explain to them, what does a star button mean? Oh, that just means you're in neutral. Just don't move. Take your hands off the button. Don't do nothing. Just for a split second, don't do nothing. Don't do nothing. And then their brains just watch their brains completely melt into their shoes. Then they try to do a Street Fighter. They go into a Street Fighter trying to do a Raging Demon, and then they're looking down at their controller trying to find a input with balled up fists and feet on their controller, and it's just like, listen, just slow down, watch a few videos on what to do. I promise you, once you get these inputs, everything will come naturally. Slow down, don't get overwhelmed. You're making things harder than they need to be. Also, combo trials. Do combo trials. A lot of fighting games nowadays have combo trials where they'll start you out with easy combos and they get progressively harder. So you'll start out with the easier ones and then you'll progressively work your way up. It's like different levels in a video game. You'll just keep working your way up to where eventually you'll just start freestyling combos and just start putting them together yourself. This kind of goes into the last point as well, but it's very easy to get overwhelmed with stuff like that. And I'm not just talking about combos or moves lists or anything. I'm talking about specifically what's like going on the screen. Some fighters have this problem, especially tag fighters have this problem a lot. You're attacking, tagging out. So many characters are on the screen at once, jumping in, having assists, and sometimes people are jumping up in the air so far that you can't even see your character on the ground. It's a lot to take in, and to be honest, if you're a newcomer to fighting games or if you're a casual, I do not recommend starting with tag fighters. This is just me, but I think some tag fighters are really bad for newcomers to get into, and I feel like that can really discourage them a lot because there's so much going on, and that's just going to easily overwhelm you. So I would not recommend that as your first fighter at all. By all means, if you see some cool characters in those games though, and you want to play as those characters, and you see them doing some cool things, by all means, try those fighters out. Which leads me exactly into my next point. Do not worry about tier lists in fighting games. Don't do none of that. Don't be looking at tier lists. Just find a character you like. Find a character that calls out to you, that looks cool, and stick with them. Find a character that when you press a button and you press that button and you see them do some cool shit and explosions and everywhere and spitting asses all over the screen and you like that, pick that character. And the reason why I say don't worry about the tier list is because what happens is when you find a character that you may like and they might not necessarily be top tier, they could be like bottom of the barrel. I'm talking D tier, C tier. Yeah, they could be bad, but you get good with that character. And then you start to figure out like, oh my God, like I'm actually beating some of the higher tier characters. Even though this character sucks, I've been getting that much better with them and I'm beating higher tier characters. That's just going to want to make you play it even more. It's going to feel satisfying knowing that your skill gap is closing in on other players. So don't be a meta slave. Find who you like and stick with them. Don't get overwhelmed, and please just practice. Just a little bit. A little practice can go a long way. Even if it's just for 30 minutes, a little practice can go a long way. I'm not saying that you have to sit in the fighting arena and just practice for an hour and a half, 2 hours, 3 hours like some people do. No, you don't have to do that. Just a little bit of practice. That's all it is. Anyway, those are some of my tips for newcomers. And let me reiterate, I'm not over here trying to be one of these elitist people thinking I'm the best at fighting games. I'm not. This is coming from a place of just slight ignorance and confusion because I have the luxury of playing these games from a young age and being ingrained in the FGC from such a young age. So when people come from other games and I see that they're so good in these other games, but then they get to fighting games and it's like they never played the game in their life, I'm just genuinely confused. A part of me wishes that I could like take a part of myself and go back and like I never played fighting games and trying to get into them to see from a casual perspective what it's like, because I've just honestly lost touch of what it's like to be a casual. I don't know what it's like. So when I see people who struggle, I really want to just pick their brain and figure out what's making you struggle. Why are you struggling this bad? I'm not struggling this bad. Some other people aren't. So why is it like this hard for you? Why wasn't it hard for me to pick up? But to my hardcore fighting games fans, let me know in the comments, what do you think make fighting games hard? Is it because of the skill issue, or could it be just that there really is a learning curve? And to my casuals or newcomers, let me know, what do you do to get better at fighting games? Ladies and gentlemen, let me know in the comments. I appreciate every single one of you all for watching this video. Make sure you like, comment, share, subscribe, and I will catch you all in the next one. All right, peace.